Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 8 4 key game picks of the 2020 NFL season. Now, before we talk about week number 8, I don't want to get into too much from week number 7 because a lot did went on, and also, I was supposed to have this video done the other day, but I apologize that this is a bit late. It's because I was hungover last night because those who really know me on a personal level knows that outside of football, I do love baseball, and obviously because the LA Dodgers won the World Series last night, I was celebrating a bit frantically last night. So obviously I waited a long time for one of my favorite teams to finally win a championship. I waited so long for this, so I do apologize, but that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to talk about football. Now, what happened in week number 7? The woes continue for the Dallas Cowboys. And what made matters worse that that Andy Dalton had a concussion in that game last week against the Washington football team. And now the Nucci era may now have to start with the Dallas Cowboys. Now with no Dak Prescott, Andy Dalton's going to be out for a while. And now the question is, can the Nucci really carry this dismal Cowboys team? Well, look, the Cowboys are fortunate. They're playing in a division that is awful. It's just, it's unbelievable to the point that I don't know how the Cowboys and the Eagles and anybody else in that dismal NFC East division is even in this thing still. I mean, I can't explain this thing one bit with this whole sorry division. But obviously, if you saw what happened between the Eagles and the Giants, obviously the laughter was Daniel Jones's big run, and then he tripped on his own feet, and not even scoring a touchdown. So let me see, what else happened? Finally, the Seahawks get their first loss on a game that really was something here against the Arizona Cardinals. And the game went into overtime, and really, it's quite amazing that Russell Wilson, 3 interceptions he had in that game last week. Probably one of his worst games he's had in probably some time. But I look at the Arizona Cardinals. Kyle Murray and that Cardinals team are really getting into a groove, and they're a team to be reckoned with. If anybody else in that tough NFC West division right now, you better start looking out for Arizona. They're making move. They're starting to make their move. The 49ers, despite the injuries they've had, and obviously you would think that probably they'd be on a downward spiral, they've managed to stay in the NFC West division. And keep in mind that everybody in the NFC West is over 500. And obviously the Rams did a number on the Bears. I'm not going to talk about too much of the Bears right now because really they better find a way to get back on track, especially with they got Green Bay coming up very soon. And that is going to be a fight for that division as well. Other than that, the Steelers still remaining undefeated on that last minute on a field goal that the Titans missed at the end. It was a heartbreaker for the Titans. They pick up their first loss of the season, and it's going to be really something the way things are going right now for that Titans team, where they might be down to earth, especially in the fact when the Colts are starting to catch up to them, and really. It's really just a two-team race in the AFC South between the Colts and the Titans. But talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers here, they're still undefeated. They haven't lost a game in a big game that they have coming up against the Ravens, and that's going to be one of the key games I will talk about. And of course, the Chiefs still on a roll, still considered the team to beat right now, and still one of the teams to beat in the AFC, and the Packers getting back on track. And really, this is really becoming quite a juggling act. I mean, who really is the favorite in both the AFC and the NFC, as well as the fact that who's the best team right now in the NFL? I mean, you can make a case it's the Steelers now. You can make a case that the Chiefs are still the team to beat. You're still making a case now that Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, they did a number on the Raiders in their last game. They're making a case for the best team in the NFL. It's really hard to tell right now. The way it's looking going into week number 8, I really don't know who the favorite is in the NFL right now. Anyways, let's talk about week number 8, shall we? And as I was mentioning about Baltimore, talking about the Steelers, Key game number 1 is talking about the Steelers. The big AFC North matchup between the Steelers versus the Ravens. Now, the Ravens were on their bye week. They last played back was in week number 6 against the Eagles. They got into a tough game in the second half of that game. And speaking of that, Lamar Jackson in that game against the Eagles, 16 of 27, 186 yards, 1 touchdown, and no interceptions. Ben Roethlisberger in that big win last week against the Titans, he went 32 of 49, 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, but surprisingly was intercepted 3 times last week. It wasn't Roethlisberger's best game, but he knew that against the Titans it was going to be a tough battle between them, and they really got into a good game last week against the Titans. But now, here comes the big one. Obviously, first place is on the line, and Baltimore could take over first place if they do beat the Steelers. This is round 1 of 2 between these two teams, and obviously this rivalry really has been something. I mean, it's been there for a long time, and it's still going to be quite a. I mean, you could say you can make a case this is more like a bloodbath between these two teams every time they face each other. But I look at it to today right now. The Steelers do have the defense, and I could see them being capable of stopping Lamar Jackson. But here's the thing: it's really hard to underestimate Lamar Jackson's mobility, and he's going to have to come up big, especially in the passing game. The Ravens' offense better be ready for the Steelers' defense if they want a chance to win this game. Because now, despite the fact that the odds makers have the Ravens as a 4-point favorite in this game, I really think that number should be much lower. I don't consider them much of a 4-point favorite. Maybe like a 2-point favorite, maybe, because you can't underestimate what the Steelers have done. The Steelers' offense is still pretty good. Now, you can go back and look at that Titan game and say, well, they got into a huge fight with the Titans in their last game. But don't be surprised if that number goes down to 3.5, maybe 3 points as the Ravens' favorite. Now, I personally think right now, I think the Steelers and their offense and their defense right now, they're getting into a groove. They're getting into a place where they haven't been in a long time and remaining undefeated. Do I see the Pittsburgh Steelers winning this game? Yes, I do. I think to me their offense and their defense right now, I think it's going to be a between these two teams, between the Ravens and the Steelers, it's always a close game. And I expect this to be a close game. This game will be very competitive. Do I expect this game to be low scoring? More than likely it'll be low scoring. I can see that happening. But I just think the way the Steelers have come about in these last 6 games that they played, they're just the team, definitely one of the heavy favorites in that AFC conference to win. And I just think to me that Lamar Jackson's going to have to really come up big with their offense in order to get through that Pittsburgh defense. But I just think the Steelers will hold Lamar Jackson at bay. I like the Steelers in this game. It's going to be a tight game all the way, but I'm picking the Steelers in this one, +4. Steelers over the Ravens. Key game number 2, going into the AFC East, the Patriots versus the Bills. Now, the Bills are a 4-point favorite in this one. I don't know if I want to put them as a 4-point favorite. That number should be much lower, the way they played against the Jets. Did the teams that played the Buffalo Bills, did they expose them? You would think that, look, the last week when the Bills played the Jets were double-digit underdogs. And yet, the Jets managed to make it a game against the Bills. Now, Josh Allen against the Bills, 30 of 43, 307 yards, no touchdowns, but 1 interception. Now, some things I have to keep in mind of that Bills offense. Did teams that already played the Bills expose them? I don't know. It's tough to say, but look, don't get me wrong. New England is really on a downward spiral with their record of 2-4, and they got demolished last week against the 49ers. Here's Newton's stats, and they were awful. 9 of 15, 98 yards, no touchdowns, but 3 interceptions. I sometimes wonder if this is true, that Belichick really misses Brady. Because really, I had a feeling that this Cam Newton experience and the way the offense that Belichick has, it really wasn't made for Newton. Why are they struggling so much? Their receivers aren't that good. Cam Newton's ability probably may save the Patriots in a couple games, but in terms of the passing game, he's really been awful. Now, this is a must-win game for the Patriots to at least try to keep pace with the Bills, even though they're under 500. The Bills are the only good team in that division, despite what the records say. But I look at it this way. New England's offense has to really be big in this game because the Bills' defense is still pretty good. But even though they had a tough time against the Jets last week, and I look at it this way. Whoever's offense doesn't turn the ball over is going to be key in this game, and whoever wins. New England and Buffalo's offense, the Bills' offense obviously is much better. But despite, you really can't underestimate Bill Belichick sometimes. He might have a better game plan this time. I expect this game to be competitive. This will be a very competitive game. But you know where I'm going to go with this. I like the Bills at -4 in this one here. I'm going to pick the Bills here. I think, to me, the Bills will barely squeak out a victory against the Pats. I think the Pats' troubles are going to continue here. They really are having trouble with their Newton has trouble with wide receivers. I mean, they really haven't been the same. I mean, Julian Edelman really hasn't been playing all that well. And a lot of it has to come down to whether New England's offense can really get it together. I'm picking the Bills in this one here. I think the Bills will barely beat the Patriots. It should be a competitive game in this one here, but I'll pick the Bills -4 here. Bills over the Patriots. Key game number 3, going into the NFC West, it is the 49ers versus the Seahawks. Seahawks are a 3-point favorite in this one. That number should be 2. Because the way the Seahawks played, did the Cardinals expose them? Now, Garoppolo, the 49ers in the big win over the Pats last week, 20 of 25, 277 yards, no touchdowns, but he was intercepted twice in that game. Russell Wilson, 33 of 50, 388 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions in that loss against the Cardinals. It's going to be a very competitive game here. I expect this. Both teams' offenses are pretty much evenly matched. It's going to come down to defense here. The 49ers do have their defense is slightly better than the Seahawks. But I think the Seahawks bounce back here. Despite all the injuries that the 49ers have here, especially when it comes down to it, I mean, they have tough games. They've always had tough games against the Seahawks and Russell Wilson. It don't matter who the quarterback of the 49ers is in that offense. I personally think the Seahawks will bounce back here, especially when they're at home. Now, I know they lost last year in the Week 17 game against the 49ers, but I think this is going to be a little bit different here. Russell Wilson knows what he has to do. I think that offense will get it together. It's going to be a very competitive game. I could see this game being very competitive here. Should be a good one in Seattle here. But I'm going to pick the Seahawks here at -3. I think their offense will get it together, and I think they will beat the 49ers. It should be a close one here. It'll definitely be probably by 3 points here. It should be a competitive game. I probably could expect a low-scoring game in this one here, but I think the Seahawks will barely beat the 49ers here. I just think Seattle's offense is just a tad better than the 49ers offense, but the 49ers do have an advantage defensively, but it should be a very close game in this one here, but I'll pick the Seahawks here. Seahawks over the 49ers. Finally, key game number 4, the Dallas Cowboys versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Despite what the records say here, the only reason why this is a key game because in this division, anybody could win it with all four teams: Dallas, Washington, Philadelphia, and the New York Giants. They're all under 500, and anybody can still win this division. But this is the key game because the Eagles are currently in first place, despite what the record says, and the Cowboys are in second place. DiNucci more than likely is going to start this game. Quote me on that, because who's to say that Andy Dalton, if he passes concussion protocol, if he'll play in this game. But DiNucci 2 of 3 and 39 yards. That was basically his stats when he had to take over for Andy Dalton. Now Wentz in that lucky comeback against the Giants, 25 of 43, 359 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Everything's going to boil down to DiNucci and how he plays if he starts in this game. I don't have any information whether or not if Andy Dalton is going to be out for this game. Assuming that it is DiNucci playing, the Eagles are a 7.5-point favorite in this one, and I agree with that because the way their offense is playing, not having Prescott there, and obviously Andy Dalton doing his best with that offense here, I mean, I'm going to really just going about. I like the Eagles in this game, even though the Eagles offense isn't all that great either. It should be a game where the Eagles should easily win despite the Cowboys not having a quarterback. I mean, there isn't a whole lot that Ezekiel Elliott in the running game can do in terms of what I mean, that's probably the only thing that's the only good light at the end of the tunnel for the Dallas Cowboys is really the running game. But obviously, the Eagles defense knows this. They obviously will pressure a lot on DiNucci, and they're going to try to give the ball to Ezekiel Elliott, but it's obvious that they know that the offense is a mess, and that is why this is kind of an easy pick here. I like the Eagles in this game. I think the Eagles will beat the Cowboys here at 7.5, and that's what I'm going to go with. I like the Eagles in this one here. Eagles over the Cowboys. All right, everybody, that wraps up my 4 key game picks for week number 8. For all my week 8 picks, check the description below, and I'll talk to you guys next week when I talk about my 4 key game picks for week number 9. And until then, take care and enjoy your football weekend.